Carl Van Eielson was an aviation pioneer and teacher. He was one of the best pilots in the 1920s. Within 15 years of the first successful flight by the Wright brothers, Carl Van Eielson flew a plane from both the top and bottom of the world. He changed maps of the world and was the first to fly airmen in Alaska. Truly an educator and leader in a global sense. As when he flew over the world, he changed people's minds. He changed their perspectives on aviation.
I marveled at Eielson's skill and courage, stated by Hubert Wilkins, fellow explorer of the 1920s.
Carl Van Eielson's legacy lives on through the evolution of world maps, through the Antarctic region, and the inception of Alaskan Airlines today. Carl Ben was born on July 20th, 1897 in Hatton, North Dakota. He graduated from commerce schools in Hatton in 1910. Carl Ben enlisted in the Air Service of the U.S. Army on the 17th day of January, 1917. Enrolled in the U.S. Army Signal Corps so that he would fly in World War I, but was retired out of the service on March 4, 1919. After graduating from the University of North Dakota in 1921, Carl Ben entered the University of Georgetown to study law. While a student at Georgetown, he met a representative from Congress from Fairbanks, Alaska, named Daniel Sutherland. Sutherland offered Carl Ben an opportunity to teach at Fairbanks, Alaska in 1922. Sutherland wanted to break Alaska's dependence on shipping companies based out of the West Coast. He and Carl Ben worked together to promote air service in Alaska. It was at this time that Carl Ben's father, Ole Eielson, realized his son's need for adventure would carry Carl Ben farther out into the world.
I believe that Ben has contributed to aviation in the Arctic and Antarctic, and if he must be sacrificed, I am proud but grieved father, Ole Eielson.
I remember every time he came, it was fun. We looked forward to it when he came. And considering I was born in 1921, I'm 93 years old, and that's the same year that he took off for Alaska to teach school. So actually, he sort of his home wasn't here anymore, but it was his home when he was in Hatton. And surprisingly, for transportation at the time, he came back quite a bit for the next 10 years. I remember him coming, quite often, surprisingly.
Carl Van Eielson was a visionary. He showed his leadership by recognizing the need for air service in Alaska. He realized the potential for finding new frontiers through aviation. The current mode of delivering anything, which included mail service, was by train or dog sled. After Carl Ben settled into teaching in Alaska in 1922, he ordered a Curtiss airplane to be shipped to him at Fairbanks. Carl Ben organized the Farthest North Aviation Club, whose principal task was to transport medical aid and supplies to remote regions of Alaska. Carl Ben demonstrated his leadership by promoting the safety of flying, and he became known as the father of aviation in Alaska.
Carl Ben Eielson was a true humanitarian, stated Gary Lilimone, Hatton Eielson Museum curator.
The first experimental flights by the U.S. Post Office were carried out on February 1924 by Carl Ben. Delivering the mail by dog teams took about 30 days to make one trip. He delivered 500 pounds of mail and marked an important epoch in airmail history. Carl Ben's contract was for 10 trips from Fairbanks to McGrath, a distance of 300 miles, and was to receive $2 per mile. Each trip was completed into 5 to 6 hours. In 1925, Carl Ben returned to Hatton, North Dakota after his mail delivery contract was finished. While in North Dakota, he received a telegram from Bessemer Stephenson in New York. Stephenson introduced Carl Ben to Captain George Hubert Wilkins, an outstanding pilot and Australian explorer. Carl Ben and Wilkins traveled in a Lockheed Vega to make their great flight over the top of the world. It took 3 tries.
Carl Ben Eielson was a true humanitarian. He was very interested in helping other people. And that's what brought him to Alaska in the first place. He wanted to connect Alaska, the Alaskan Airways, and connect Alaska with the other parts of the world. He met with explorer Hubert Wilkins, and it was in 1926 that they first attempted the top of the world flight, which was unsuccessful. They attempted it again in 1927, again unsuccessful. In 1928, Carl Ben Eielson and Hubert Wilkins, the explorer, were able to make the first top-of-the-world flight, flying from Point Barrow, Alaska, to Spitsbergen, Norway. Now, if you were to look at a globe or a map of that area, it would say unknown. No exploration had been done in that area ever before. It is a distance of about 2,200 miles. They did it nonstop in about 23 and a half hours. And upon their completion of this top-of-the-world flight, they became immediate heroes in the field of aviation. Carl Ben Eielson is a hero of Hatton, North Dakota. He is a hero of the state of North Dakota. He is a United States hero, and he is a world hero in the field of aviation. To this day, Carl Ben Eielson's flight over the top of the world is still considered one of the bravest and one of the greatest feats in aviation history.
Eielson kept his nerve. I prayed. 60, 70 miles an hour. We lifted, swung secondly, touched the ice again, then soared smoothly into the air, as quoted by Hubert Wilkins.
Carl Ben joined a company of pilots in the winter of 1929 on a flight to rescue stranded passengers and recover $1 million worth of furs aboard a freighter ship which was caught off the ice on the Siberian coast. It was during this rescue attempt that Carl Ben Eielson and Earl of Orland, his mechanic, lost their lives. Carl Ben's aircraft never reached the freighter Nanook. 79 days later, a multinational air and ground effort discovered the wreckage of Carl Ben's plane on a small island off the Siberian coast. Both bodies were recovered on February 30th and were returned to the United States for burial. Alaska later memorialized the aviator by naming a mountain peak near Mount McKinley after him. In 1948, Carl Ben was awarded the Harmon Trophy, an award described by Clifford B. Harmon Trust as
An award described by the Clifford B. Harmon Trust as American Award for the Most Outstanding International Achievements in the Arts and/or Science of Aeronautics.
With accomplishment comes recognition, and many things were given in honor of Carl Ben Eielson's accomplishments. Just to name a few, Carl Ben Eielson was inducted into the North Dakota Aviation Hall of Fame. Carl Ben Eielson was inducted into the National Aviation Hall of Fame in Dayton, Ohio. Carl Ben Eielson received the Congressional Medal of Honor, the Flying Cross Award. There are several schools named the Eielson School, the Carl Ben Eielson School, as such. There is an Eielson Air Force Base in Alaska named in his honor. We have the Hatton Cemetery has an archway that is the Hatton or the Carl Ben Eielson Memorial Arch. This arch was built by grade school children from throughout the state of North Dakota, sending their nickels and dimes to the city of Hatton to build and erect this monument in honor of Carl Ben Eielson, this great man in the field of aviation. Carl Ben Eielson received the Harmon Trophy. The Harmon Trophy is the highest award given by the United States government to anybody in the field of aviation. Carl Ben Eielson received the Rough Rider Award. The Rough Rider Award is the highest award given to a North Dakotan. Carl Ben Eielson was the first to receive it after his death. Carl Ben Eielson was a true humanitarian.
His accomplishments were truly astonishing. His story is impressive because it relates to his passion and dedication to aviation.
Stated by H.G. Wambine, author of Ben in Memoriam, Carl Ben Eielson was one of the finest and best-known world heroes.